All right, here we go. It is now the beginning of the 2021 season for my Orioles rebuild. So this episode is like an off-season recap and preseason predictions. First, to start, going to look around the league at major free agent signings that happened winter 2020, spring 2021. The big one is Mookie Betts signed early in the offseason, before December even, going to the Washington Nationals, 8 years, $363 million. His original ask, because I just checked out what he was asking for, not that I was going to offer anything, was like 10 years and $55 million per year, like well over $500 million. So he got $45 million. There are no opt-outs or anything, so congrats to the Nats. Soto and Betts as your corner outfielders will do okay in the middle of your lineup. Rizzo is a free agent coming off an okay year. He signed in Colorado for 4 years. DJ LeMahieu had another great year in New York and cashed in big time, 5 years, $137 million. James Paxton went to LA. That's a pretty good signing for them, but he's going to miss like half the year. He tore a muscle in his back or something in the preseason. Odorizzi, pretty good payday. The Brewers went and got themselves a shortstop. Let's see. Alex Wood to the Philly. The Nats also signed Justin Turner to a 3-year deal, so they lost Harper and Rendon over the last few years, and now replace him with Betts and Turner. So, hey, there you go. This one's pretty interesting. Trevor Bauer to New York for 4 years. I would love to see Trevor Bauer in New York with that media. Goodness. Marcus Semien went to the Braves, who are like a World Series favorite. Kevin Gossman had a fantastic year for the Giants. Put up like 4.5 WAR and cashed in for 7 years, $125 million. With Boston. The Brewers, some other signings by them. You'll see the Baltimore Orioles signed Jonathan Lucroy. That was one of my few signings. Gregorius to Boston, where he's going to DH because they still have Xander Bogaerts, but 7 years, $116 million for a guy when you already have Xander Bogaerts at his position. Okay. JD Martinez went to the White Sox. I like that signing for them. They're a young team, so it's a lot of money for a guy his age, a lot of years, but hey. Let's see. The Orioles also signed Austin Hedges. So like I said, I went out and signed a couple catchers. Nelson Cruz to Oakland, 40-year-old, gets $3 million, but it's only $25 million. So, really if he puts up 2.5 wins over those 3 years, it's worth their money. Let's see, what else do we get here? Robbie Ray, big money, 5 years, $91 million from the Mets. The Mets have a really good rotation now. They also signed, as you can see right here, Corey Kluber for 4 years, $62.8. Michael Brantley goes back to Cleveland on a 4-year deal. That's fun. Let's see. A couple others. Stroman to the Cardinals for 7 years. Chris Archer, coming off a down year, signed for 3 years, $14 million with the Dodgers. He's actually in their bullpen as of now, so just like real life, the Dodgers have like 7 or 8 starting pitchers. They also signed Starling Marte, who is coming off a pretty bad year with the Diamondbacks, to a 1-year, $6.7 million. So Betts came off the books. They didn't sign him, but they made a bunch of like smaller signings like those. Yeah, that's kind of it in terms of the free agent signings. Quintana, coming off a bad year, signed with Houston. Tanaka was, I think he was hurt and had a bad year, signed with the Red Sox. That's funny. Jerickson Profar signed in Cincinnati for a 4-year deal worth a good amount of money. This is one sign I liked a lot. The Red Sox signed Marcell Ozuna to a 1-year, $10.5 million deal, but it looks like he broke his wrist in spring training. He's out for 2 months. But he was coming off, he missed almost all of the 2020 season with the Braves. He got injured in like May. I think he tore his ACL or PCL, something CL. So he was available to discount. If I was competitive and needed an outfielder, I would have signed him at that price in a heartbeat. So those are the big free agent signings. In terms of trades, don't think there were any blockbusters, but there were a few interesting trades. I made one trade that I like a lot. Let's see. So down here we go. Minnesota, for some reason, traded Trevor Larnach. I think that's how you say his name. Who's a really good hitting outfield prospect. Traded him to Cincinnati for Michael Lorenzen, who's a two-way player. Oakland ate almost all of Chris Davis's contract, and Chris with a K, and sent him to Atlanta. Kyle Lewis, who's a really great prospect, went to the Braves. The Nationals got Kimbrel. New York has an absurd bullpen now, to include, they brought in Raisel Iglesias. They have a really good bullpen. You might not recognize that Marlins logo. We'll talk about that in a minute. Mike Moustakas went to Arizona. Minnesota apparently not interested in keeping any of their outfield prospects. Traded Killeroff for Ty Buttrey. I traded Rio Ruiz for some prospects for Smeltzer. Smeltzer then got taken in the Rule 5 draft, so I traded back for him from the Nationals. All in all, Ruiz is gone. I got Smeltzer and a couple other dudes. But then here was the big trade I made. So a couple teams were interested in Brennan Hanafy, who had a really nice year for me in Bowie. He put up 1.8 wins above replacement, but 3.24 ERA and 18 starts. He wasn't really a strikeout pitcher. And I just didn't have room for him at AAA, and he was barely going to make my AA rotation even, actually. And he's a decent prospect. Like, he's okay, but a couple teams I think are higher on him than my scout is. OSA is pretty similar, but both the Padres and the Reds were really interested in him, and I almost got a package to get CJ Abrams, who was the Padres' first round pick a year ago, but just couldn't find a package. So then I went with the Reds and Trevor Larnach, who enters the season as the number 76 prospect in the majors. I got him. I go with some other guys. Alex Wells is a usable major league pitcher, probably fringe-ish. I just don't have room for him. He was going to pitch out of my bullpen in Norfolk for the second year in a row. Dan Hammer's nothing. Cody Sedlock, former Orioles first-round pick, but again, he only pitched 21 innings in Bowie last year for me. He's buried in my bullpen. So basically, I have so much depth in my system. I'm going to continue to try to find trades like this where I can find one prospect that a couple teams overvalue or value a lot more than I do, and then package a few other guys that I'm not really using and try to get a great prospect. It's really hard to do. You can spend hours trying to look for it and not come out of it with any trade. I've spent a lot of time in my offseason doing this. Pretty happy with this trade for Larnach. He's, the right fielder of the future, I'd say at this point. He put up 4.2 WAR with a 124 OPS plus in AA last year. He'll start this year in AAA. He's not on the 40-man yet, so I think I'll just leave him down there. Probably give him some left field playing time too. The Astros made a very Astros trade. They've traded for Matt Boyd, who is a pitcher who will probably suddenly be a Cy Young winner because he's one of those guys who pitches really well, but is and has great stuff. And the Astros are probably going to get a lot out of him. So that's free agents and trades. There were a couple interesting extensions. Clayton Kershaw, he signed for this year, but he signed a 5-year, $168 million extension at the age of 33 with the Dodgers, which just, man, that seems crazy. 5 years, come on. And then this one was a little disappointing because I would have gone after him at free agency at some point, maybe. Noah Syndergaard, he was in his last year of arbitration. And as you can see, he had a really good year last year for the Mets, put up 4.8 wins above replacement. So I was surprised that prior to this season, sometime in the offseason, he signed a 5-year deal worth $107 million. So he's locked up for this year, which is an arbitration year at 10.2, and then guarantees himself 24.2, and then has a player opt out 3 more years at 24.2 with an opt out before the last year. But man, I bet he could have gotten a ton of money on the free agent market. Looking at what some of those other guys, some of those other pitchers that he's better than, got this year. So let's go to the MLB preseason predictions. Standings, the Yankees predicted to win the East again. The Orioles last year projected for 49 wins, projected for 62 here. And that's even with not all of our best players up, which I'll get to in a minute. The White Sox coming along nicely, as you would imagine with a team with the young talent they have, projected to win that division. The Angels projected to win the West, which is interesting because they still have no pitching. The Astros will be competitive. No huge surprises here. Let's see, what else? The Braves and Nats projected to be on top in the East. The Miami Cornhuskers. So the Marlins changed their name to the Cornhuskers. They're projected to win 67 games, by the way. And This is their logo. That thing's terrible. Anyway, so yeah, they did that. The NL Central Cardinals, who went to the World Series last year, projected to win. This is a surprise. The Padres projected to win the West. That young talent is coming along. I imagine the Dodgers might have something to say about that, though. So yeah, that's the projected standings. Now to get into the Baltimore Orioles opening day roster. At catcher, we've got Hedges. Luke Roy's going to play like every other day, though. And I'll kind of run through these guys and explain a couple names that are missing that will be joining the team shortly. Pat Valaika, he's just a utility guy. He's start first base for now. We've got Hyun-Jun, I think is how you say it, Hyun-Jun Park, second baseman. Grabbed him in the Rule 5. He did not have a great year in AAA with the bat, but is a really good fielder and can also play shortstop, so I figured he was worth the risk. So we've got him. Abraham Toro is up. He was one of the main pieces in the Mancini trade. He's up starting at third base. Richie Martin, he will not start at short all year, I don't think, but he's there for now. Austin Hayes is there in left field, finally up and ready to do things. Hanneman still in center field. I don't know if he'll be on the roster all year. He might kind of be an up and down kind of guy. Santander still in right field. DJ Stewart still up DHing. I got Jared Oliva, who he's in Pirate system in real life and is an okay older prospect. But he was available in the Rule 5 draft after he had an absolutely terrible year in AAA, 52 OPS plus, negative .5 WAR. But I claimed him because he can play center field pretty well, and hopefully he'll have a bounce back year. So Oliva and Park were the two guys I claimed. Cedric Mullins also up. You might notice that Ryan Mountcastle and Rylan Bannon are two main offensive prospects of mine. They're not up. They are on the 40-man. I'm going to keep them down for about the first 3 weeks of the season to play the service time game. If I do that, I'll have an extra year of team control. I don't want all these guys to come up for free agency, first year of arbitration, etc., all the same year. So I'm trying to stagger it with a couple guys that I just added to the 40-man, like those two. So Bannon and Mountcastle will be up. They're just not yet. And then also Alan Cordoba will eventually come in and be the starting shortstop. He's got 3 more weeks to recover from an elbow injury in September. He looks like he's maybe a more utility guy, but he's probably going to have the starting shortstop job for most of the year. Pitching. Michael Baumann, who was up last year and had a great first half before getting hurt and then was terrible in the second half, #1 starter. Corey Abbott is a guy who came over in the Chance Sisco trade, who had great year combined between AA and AAA last year, put up 2.9 wins above replacement between the two levels. He's a #2 starter. John Means is around still. Dean Kramer, who kind of struggled last year, up, is the #4 starter, and Armenteros, who came over in that Mancini trade, is the 5. Javier Guerra is the closer, and he looks like a beast. My scout loves him. He came over in a trade with San Diego last year. He put up 1.7 wins above replacement as a reliever last year and 13.2 Ks per 9 in AAA, and he's got the closer job. J.D. Hammer came over in a trade from the Phillies last year. Oscar De La Cruz came over in a trade from the Cubs. Romero came over in that Givens trade with the Nationals 2 years ago, short as a trade. Brandon Biwak is the long man / he might get some starts too. He came over from the Astros in that Mancini trade. Armstrong is around. Blyers, the specialist. So this is what I was saying, why I kind of look in every trade to add relief pitchers or closers, because you can normally get them pretty cheap as throw-ins, and then you can build a major league bullpen out of it. Now, not all these guys are going to be in my long-term plans, but they're all decent, and I have a few other guys that I'll be like Zach Pop, and a couple other of the relievers I've acquired over the last year who will kind of come up when I need fresh arms who are on the 40-man. So that's that. Next, let's go talk about a very exciting development. Actually, let's talk about the second most exciting. The Orioles were sold. Dan McDaniel, age 62. He's from Pennsylvania. He bought the team at the beginning of the offseason. I think I forgot to update that in my offseason update. And he upped the budget from $95 million, which Angelos had, to $108 million. He's got some goals for me, which aren't too hard to achieve. And so, yeah, so Peter Angelos is out, Dan McDaniel's in. But the real exciting thing here is that the preseason sees the Orioles with the second best farm system in baseball. I was 10th at the end of last year, and I think I was around there when I took over last year too. So I also have 9 guys in the top 100 who you can see right over here. Asa Lacy was my first-round pick, second overall, but he's out all year with a torn rotator cuff. He's due back in 5 months, so he might get some time at the end of the season, but doubt it. Amazing that he's still ranked 7th overall. Rutschman slid to 29th. He's probably ready for the majors. And most of the guys that hopped over him, like half of them were guys who were drafted last year in the first round. A bunch of the top 10, 20 picks hopped over him. But he's still, an elite prospect. Rylan Bannon, again, monster year in AAA last year. 4.4 wins above replacement. Was not even a ranked prospect last year until the end of the year. He's now the number 52 prospect in baseball and will be up about 3 weeks into the season. Trevor Larnach, the trade, 53rd overall. Leo Martez, shortstop prospect who I signed as the international free agent. He's going to spend another year in the international complex. He's not even 18 yet. Looking like a pretty good shortstop prospect, though. Austin Hayes is in the top 100. DL Hall will be in AAA. Nick Matan, who came out of nowhere to be a top 100 prospect, got him in that Tanner Scott trade, and then he put up, over 4 WAR between the 2 AA teams he played on last year. So he'll be the starting shortstop in AAA. Hopefully shortstop of the future. If not, right behind him, we got Drew Bowser, who was the first-round supplemental pick, coming right up behind him. And then, a bunch of names that you know if you followed along. Toro, Mountcastle, Gunnar Henderson. Yusnel Diaz, hopefully he'll have a bounce-back year. He's terrible. And here we've got some more draft picks / guys I traded for, McKenna being the exception. He was already in the system. But all these other guys are guys that I brought in, and the system's now the second best overall. I am pumping a ton of money into the player development, $20 million, because I find that helps. And I'm, going to continue to build the farm system. But I do think this year, I'll win more games because I have more talent up. I have a bunch of the rookies up. I'm not trying to contend. I'm not going to sell off for guys at the deadline. Really, what I'm trying to do this year is figure out, all right, what prospects can make it at the major league level. A bunch of the guys that were stashed in AAA last year. Who's for real, who's not? Because I think next year, really, with these guys being in their second full year, Rutschman will be up at that point. DL Hall could be up. I think, if I bring in a free agent, I think I might be able to be competitive next year if a couple of these guys prospects hit. One interesting thing, and I'll go to a different page. This is the same prospect ranking. But as you remember, Greyson Rodriguez, who was my number 2 prospect going into last season, and he had 2 different shoulder injuries last season, and they're not optimistic about his recovery. He is now 32nd in my system, which is just a freaking bummer. He's going to start the year at Bowie. He did have a great year when he pitched last year in Delmarva, but my scout, as well as the Baseball News Network prospect rankings, both lost a lot of confidence in him over those shoulder injuries. His potential stuff decreased. His potential control decreased. So his stamina decreased. His velocity did improve. So, we'll see. But basically, my scout is a lot less optimistic on him, and so is the OSA. So that's a major bummer because he was a top 50 prospect going into last season, I think, right? No, he's 68, and then he was 32 at the midseason, and at the end of the year, he's 73rd. But I guess just once he was recovered from those shoulder injuries, the scouts saw that he's just not the same guy. But who knows? Maybe he'll bounce back. Maybe he'll have a great bounce-back year. He is slated to be the number 1 starter. And here you can see just a bunch of guys that I've traded for to add some depth to this system. So anyways, that is the offseason update. The O's it's going to be way more fun this year running the major league team because I actually have some guys who are going to be long-term pieces, and Rutschman's getting close. Larnach is getting close. I don't know if I want to start either of their clocks this year. I might wait till next year, even if they're ripping it up at AAA. And so today is April 10th recording this. I'm going to do the live opening day again on my channel, live streamed opening day 2020. I'm going to do this one on Sunday, the 12th at 3 p.m. Hopefully first pitch around 3. And I'll start the live stream a little before that. So yeah, that's all the offseason updates. So Mookie Betts to the Nats, and the O's have the second best farm system in baseball, and are moving towards being a respectable franchise again. Hope to see you in virtual Baltimore on Sunday for fake Orioles opening day.